I make my living by whispering into a microphone. It's a strange profession when you say it out loud, but it's one built on trust, on creating a small pocket of calm in a loud world. My channel is called EchoChamberLeo. For 3 years, it has been a sanctuary for people who can't sleep, people whose thoughts are too loud, people who just need to hear a gentle voice and the soft tapping of fingernails on wood to feel okay. It's supposed to be calming. But for the last 3 weeks, my whispers have been hiding a second voice, and it's been telling my viewers exactly how it plans to kill me. My studio is my world. A small, soundproofed room in the back of my apartment, painted a deep matte charcoal that swallows the light and deadens all echoes. In the center of it all, on a heavy boom arm, sits my microphone. It's a beautiful piece of equipment, a Neumann U87, with a large golden grill that earned it the nickname Midas. To me, Midas wasn't just a tool, it was a partner. It captured not just sound, but intimacy. The crinkle of a candy wrapper, the soft brushing of a makeup brush against its mesh, the delicate fizz of bath bombs dissolving in water. These were my instruments, and with them, I conducted symphonies of serenity for an audience of thousands. The connection is real. You see the same usernames pop up in the chat night after night. You learn their stories through donations and comments. Sarah, an ER nurse who listens on her break to decompress. Mark, a long-haul trucker who uses my streams to combat the loneliness of the road. I was their comfort, their predictable, gentle voice in the dark. The whole thing started on a Tuesday, during a fairly standard tapping and scratching live stream. I was working my way through a collection of textured objects, a leather-bound book, a slate coaster, a wooden hairbrush. The chat was placid, a slow-moving river of heart emojis and compliments about the audio quality. Then a super chat popped up, a donation large enough to make me pause. It was from a new user, a name I'd never seen before, The Listener. The message attached was poetic, odd but not overtly creepy. It simply requested if I could tap on a cold window pane, the way rain does right before a storm. I live in a high-rise, and the window behind me looks out over the city lights. It was a cold night. I smiled, thanking the listener for the generous donation and the atmospheric request. I moved Midas closer to the glass and began to tap, my fingers light and quick, mimicking the first drops of a downpour. The sound was crisp, clean, and resonant. The chat loved it. The stream continued for another hour without incident, and I signed off feeling the familiar satisfaction of a good session. It wasn't until the next morning that the first crack appeared in my calm little world. I was sipping coffee and scrolling through the comments on the archived stream when I saw a few strange ones. One user, a regular, mentioned that they thought they heard a faint whisper under the sound of the window tapping. They asked if I had said something off mic. Another user replied, agreeing. They described it as a faint, scratchy voice, almost too low to be real. They said it sounded like it had whispered the words, "not safe." I felt a little knot of unease tighten in my stomach. I went back to the VOD, scrubbing to the exact timestamp. I put on my best studio headphones, the ones that pick up every breath and swallow. I cranked the volume. I heard my own tapping, the distant hum of the city, my own breathing. Nothing else, not a whisper. I dismissed it. It had to be audio pareidolia, the brain creating patterns from random noise. Or more likely, a couple of trolls trying to start a creepypasta in my comments section. I posted a brief reply explaining that there was no one else in the room and it was likely just an audio artifact. I tried to forget about it, but the feeling of unease lingered, a single discordant note in an otherwise perfect melody. A few nights later, I went live again. I was determined to shake off the weirdness from the last stream. I decided on a session focused on personal attention triggers, hairbrushing, scalp massage sounds, soft, inaudible whispers. The things that made my audience feel seen and cared for. For an hour, everything was normal. The chat was warm and appreciative. I was starting to relax, to fall back into the rhythm of my work. Then the notification chimed again. Another super chat, another massive donation. It was the listener. My heart gave a little jolt. The chat noticed too, a ripple of excitement and apprehension moving through the comments. The request this time was more specific and far more unsettling. The listener wanted to hear the sound of scissors snipping very close to the microphone, like a haircut. I hesitated. There was something clinical and sharp about the request that felt out of place in the soft world I'd built. But the donation was huge and the chat was already buzzing with the anticipation. Peer pressure is a strange thing, even when it's just anonymous text on a screen. So I reached for the pair of antique barber shears I sometimes use for metallic trigger sounds. They were heavy and cold in my hand. I brought them close to Midas, so close the steel almost touched the golden mesh. I began to snip. A sharp, clean, metallic snip, 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 right next to the microphone's sensitive ears. The sound was incredibly crisp. The chat filled with fire emojis and exclamations about the amazing tingles. I finished the stream feeling a strange mix of relief and anxiety. The relief won out. I had faced the weirdness head-on and nothing had happened. The whisper thing was clearly a one-off prank. I went to bed feeling like I had reclaimed my space. The morning shattered that illusion completely. My inbox was a war zone. I had dozens of DMs across all my social media platforms, emails from subscribers, panicked, terrified messages. It wasn't just 2 people this time, it was hundreds. They were all saying the same thing. During the scissor sounds, they had heard the voice again. This time it wasn't a faint whisper. It was clearer. It was guttural, and it was undeniably malicious. They sent me audio clips they had recorded from the stream, short videos where they had isolated the moment. The whisper was woven perfectly between the metallic snips. Snip, a raspy voice saying the word cut. Snip. The cord. Snip. That holds. Snip. The neck. My blood ran cold. I scrambled to my computer, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type my password. I pulled up the VOD, the raw audio file from my own hard drive. I listened again and again and again. I heard nothing. Just the clean, sharp sound of the scissors. It wasn't there. It simply wasn't on my recording. But I had hundreds of messages from people all over the world who had heard it. They weren't collaborating. They were terrified witnesses. They were asking if I was okay, if someone had been in the room with me, if I was in danger. My soundproof room, my sanctuary, suddenly felt like a cage. I was broadcasting a threat against myself, a threat that only the outside world could hear. I posted a frantic, poorly worded message on my community tab, telling everyone that I was fine, that it must be a very sophisticated and cruel prank, a hack on YouTube's streaming service itself. I told them I was investigating, but I was lying. I had no idea what was happening. That night, for the first time in years, I triple-checked the locks on my apartment door and wedged a chair under the handle. I was afraid of a voice that, for all I knew, didn't even exist. A week crawled by, a week of suffocating silence. I didn't stream. I didn't even go into the studio. The charcoal gray walls seemed to watch me. Midas, my golden microphone, sat inert on its arm, feeling less like a partner and more like an accomplice. My community was a whirlwind of speculation. Theories ranged from a vengeful ghost to a stalker with impossibly advanced audio hacking technology. The clips of the scissor whisper had gone viral on horror subreddits. My subscriber count was skyrocketing, but the numbers meant nothing. I was paralyzed by fear, but the fear was warring with another, more practical emotion: the need to pay my rent. My channel was my only source of income. I couldn't just abandon it. I convinced myself it had to be a technical problem, a bizarre frequency interference, something logical. So I decided to do one more stream, a safe stream. I would disable super chats. I would stick to simple, organic sounds, wood tapping, page turning, no requests, no scissors. I needed to prove to myself and to my audience that I was in control. I went live. My hands were slick with sweat. I started the stream by addressing the situation, my voice trembling slightly. I explained that I was disabling donations for the night and that we were just going to have a simple, relaxing session. The chat was supportive, filled with messages of encouragement. For a while, it worked. I fell into the familiar rhythm of turning the pages of an old book, the soft, papery rustle filling the silence. I was starting to believe it was all over. A moment of false calm, and then I saw the notification. Not a super chat, a channel membership. Someone had just purchased the highest possible tier, the Inner Sanctum membership, for $500. The username attached was The Listener. And with the membership notification came a message, posted directly into the live chat for everyone to see. The request was disgusting. Primal. It read, the sound of a wet cloth being wrung out, slowly, dripping onto a concrete floor. The chat froze. My blood turned to ice. It was a direct challenge, a violation of the rules I had just set. The chat became a battleground. Half the people were begging me to stop the stream, to call the police. The other half, driven by a morbid, undeniable curiosity, were egging me on. They wanted to know what the voice would say next. And a dark, shameful part of me wanted to know too. I needed to understand. My mind raced. A wet cloth. Concrete. I didn't have a concrete floor. I grabbed a heavy ceramic bowl from my prop shelf, one I used for water sounds. I ran to the bathroom and soaked a washcloth in cold water. My hands were shaking as I walked back to the microphone. I held the sopping cloth over the bowl right next to Midas, and I started to squeeze. The sound was thick, sickening. A slow, squelching twist, followed by heavy, plopping drips into the bowl. Plop, plop, plop. It was a deeply unpleasant sound, and I hated it. I did it for 30 seconds, my knuckles white. I felt nauseous, but I finished, dropped the cloth, and looked at the chat. The reaction was instantaneous and explosive. It wasn't just a few people hearing a whisper. It was everyone. The chat was moving so fast I could barely read the words. People were typing in all caps, spamming shocked emojis. They weren't just describing a whisper. They were describing a full, coherent sentence, a voice that was woven into the sound of the drips. They said it sounded like a man gargling, like he was speaking from underwater. And the message, as they typed it out frantically, word for word, was this: "The water will fill the lungs." I felt a scream build in my chest, hot and sharp. I lunged forward and hit the end stream button. The live feed cut to black. I sat there in the sudden silence, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Thousands of people had just heard my own murder being described, broadcast from my own room through my own equipment, in a voice I could not hear. The violation was absolute. It wasn't a hacker. It wasn't a ghost. This was something else. Something intimately, terrifyingly connected to me. I ripped the microphone's cable from the audio interface and threw it across the room. The next few days were a blur of paranoia. I barely ate. I didn't sleep. The silence of my apartment was the loudest sound I had ever heard. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum of the refrigerator was a potential threat. My sanctuary, the soundproof room, had become the epicenter of my terror. I couldn't even look at it, but the mystery was eating me alive. The lack of an explanation was a different kind of torture. Was someone in my walls? Had they bugged my microphone? Was I losing my mind? I had to know. I decided to run one final experiment. No live stream, no audience, no the listener. Just me, Midas, and a local recording. I would prove once and for all that the voice only appeared when I was broadcasting. With a deep sense of dread, I retrieved the microphone. Its golden grill seemed to mock me. I plugged it back in, launched my recording software, and hit record. I didn't speak. I didn't make a sound. I just sat in the chair, recording 10 minutes of pure, unadulterated silence. The room tone of my terror. My plan was to analyze the waveform for any anomalies, any hidden signals. As the 10-minute mark approached, my phone buzzed on the desk. A notification. It was a comment on my last YouTube video, the one I had abruptly cut off. I picked up the phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. The comment had been posted just seconds ago. It was from the listener, and it said, "I can still hear you. Let them hear the silence." A wave of nausea and vertigo washed over me. It was impossible. There was no stream. There was no broadcast. My computer was on a closed circuit. How could they know? How could they know what I was doing right at this very second? I slammed the spacebar, stopping the recording. My breath hitched in my throat. This transcended technology. This was something else entirely. Trembling, I opened the audio file I had just created. As expected, the waveform was a perfectly flat line. 10 minutes of digital nothing. My logical brain screamed that it was over, that the comment was a lucky guess, a coincidence. But my gut, my terrified, primal gut, told me to look closer. I remembered something from an audio engineering forum, a trick for finding ultra-low level noise. I highlighted the entire flat line of audio. I applied a massive gain boost, pushing the signal up by 100 decibels. The line trembled, thickening into a fuzzy band of static. Then I applied a noise removal filter, but I inverted the settings. Instead of listening for noise and removing it, I told the software to listen for silence and remove that, leaving only the noise behind. The fuzzy band on my screen resolved. It was no longer flat. A tiny, jagged but distinct waveform had been hiding in the silence. My heart pounding, I put on my headphones and pressed play. For the first time I heard it. It was faint, distorted, like a voice carried on a solar wind from 1 billion miles away. It was thin and reedy, but it was there, and it was whispering. A single word, over and over and over. A frantic, desperate loop. My own name. The voice wasn't coming through the microphone. The realization crashed into me with the force of a physical blow. The microphone wasn't picking up a sound from the room. It was picking up a sound from its source, from me. It was never a hacker. It was never a ghost in the machine. It was a ghost in me. The super chats, the requests from the listener, they weren't commands. They were prompts, triggers. Whoever or whatever the listener was, it knew me. It knew the sounds that would resonate with the broken, buried parts of my own psyche. The tapping on the cold window pane. It was the sound my father's ring used to make on my bedroom window when he was locked out. The snipping of the scissors, a terrifying, intrusive thought I'd had for years, one I'd never spoken aloud. And the dripping water. The dripping water was from a memory I had suppressed for 20 years. A childhood accident at a lake, the feeling of my lungs filling with cold, dark water before I was pulled to safety. These sounds weren't random. They were keys, each one designed to unlock a door deep inside my mind, letting this other voice, this hidden thing, speak. It was using my own trauma as its vocabulary. With a dawning, sickening horror, I navigated to the listener's YouTube profile. No videos, no posts, no history, just a blank avatar and the username. I checked the About tab. The account's creation date was listed there. October 27th, the anniversary of the car accident. The one that took my parents. The one I survived. The one I never, ever talked about. My blood felt like sludge in my veins. I opened my channel's analytics, my fingers like lead. I found the record of the super chats, the membership purchase. I looked at the source of the funds. I had assumed it was some anonymous PayPal account. It wasn't. After tracing it through 3 layers of digital anonymizers and VPNs, the source account was revealed. It was my own credit card. I had been sending myself money. I had been writing the requests. I had been triggering myself, night after night, broadcasting my own fractured psyche's death threats to the world. The listener was me. I am sitting in the studio now. The lights are off. The only illumination comes from the soft glow of the monitor. Midas is in front of me, its golden grill gleaming. It doesn't look like a tool anymore. It looks like an antenna pointed directly at my soul. It's a conduit for the part of me that wants to die, a part that has found a way to have a voice. The quiet of this soundproof room is no longer a comfort. It's a stage. I lean in close to the microphone. Not to whisper, not to create, not to soothe. I lean in to listen. And from the profound, pressing silence of the room, a new sound emerges. It isn't coming through my headphones. It's coming from the back of my own throat, a low, resonant hum. The hum deepens, vibrates in my chest, and then it resolves into a whisper. A whisper that is mine and not mine at all. It asks a single, simple question. Are you listening now? The feeling of being a stranger in your own mind is the purest terror. But what happens when that stranger isn't in your head, but is wearing your husband's face? Join me next time as we explore the story of the man who was replaced by a doppelganger.